This is a Broadcast Devices Tech Update.
Tell us about your audio products, please.
So we're going to talk about flexible audio solutions and products today. And you know who I am and you know our company. So we make basically three kind of classes of products. One that I would refer to as our Audio Toolbox series, which is the first group here. And then we make a group of passive audio solutions. And then the third group that I'm going to talk about today is our FM transmission based systems that we've been making for some time. So the Audio Toolbox, well, actually, these have been around a while too, but we get a lot of criticism about the front panel kind of always looking the same, but what's under the hood is very different from what we started building about 15 years ago with this product line. But again, we have the three model classes within the Audio Toolbox family. So if you want to do switching and distribution, that would be our ATB 300 series, which is what's shown there. And then we have a cross-point router that we make, which is the GPM 300 series. And then the last one that we brought out, and again, this goes back a little ways, was the DAB 300, which is a dual path switcher, which we designed specifically for IBOC back when most stations were using separate transmitters and exciters and all that to do analog and digital transmission. So we'll go through each one of these really quickly. So if we start by looking at the common features across these three product classes within the Audio Toolbox family. On the AES-3 configurations, and we make these in about 9 different configurations for each model class. So if you just right there, you have about 27 different models that we make within these 3 model classes. So on all the digital I/O products, there's sample rate conversion on every input. On the hybrid models, where you can do analog and digital in the same chassis, we do A to D and D to A conversion on all the hybrid versions. We support 4-channel composite audio switching and DA as well. There's a module that you can configure these units with that allows you to do that. And you can also convert in the digital domain composite audio back to AES-3. So you get does a decode left and right and converts it back to AES-3. And of course, all models have the silence detection and auto revert feature. Again, support 4 and 8 features. All AES-3 models are available in the 4 and 8 channel models. You can do analog 4 or 8 channels as well. Even the analog model, all analog models, the switching is all done in the DSP domain. We don't do any, we use synchronous switching to do AES switching, and then even in the analog domain, and all the decision making for the silence detector and auto revert and all that's done in the DSP that we have on board. And we talked about the other 2 bullet items there, so I won't bore you with those again. So if we take a look at the inside of, let's say the ATB 300, for example, rear panel, one thing we left out of the bullet points is all the I/O on these products is Tascam D-Sub-25 standard. And this picture of the rear panel is a little deceiving because I think we took a picture of a rear panel. We stuck all the connectors on the back, so not every configuration has all those connectors. But anyway, we do the audio I/O with D-Sub-25 connections. And as you can see from the block diagram, it's pretty simple on the inside. You have your inputs. The silence detection is monitoring all of the inputs simultaneously. It's cycling through and looking at all the audio inputs, and that's pretty important because when either you get to the silence detection, you want to make sure that it's going to go to a channel where there's actually audio, which we do. And then the switcher part of it is, again, all of these things are contained within the DSP, and then the output is a DA. So again, the ATB 300 is select an input, and then that fans out to all outputs. So if you have an AES-3 input and you have AES-3 outs and analog outs, you'll get both flavors on the output. And of course, we have a graphical user interface and configuration software for the product, which is free for download from our website. And it's pretty simple. Just car radio push buttons for selecting the inputs. You can go in the configuration page and you can name the inputs anything you want. You'll note that next to each one of the input buttons, there's an icon for a little speaker. I don't know if you can see that or not, but when I took the screenshot of this, apparently the unit didn't have any audio feeding it, and that's what it's showing, that there's a little speaker with a red slash through it. So when you have the active channels, that'll go green, and so that way you're, even in the manual mode, you're going to be ensured that if you're selecting a channel, it's going to have audio on it. We can't guarantee what that audio will be, but you'll have audio on it. And of course, the auto and manual buttons are there so that you can override the automatic operation. And we also incorporated a tone generator for setup. So that's there. That's a ninth input on these units. Alrighty, so that's the ATB 300. Now, the other thing I think I should point out too is these all look the same, and the hardware platform is also a common hardware platform across all three of these. So everything that's on the inside of these boxes is the same. So keeps the parts count down and all that. And for a manufacturer, it allows us to manufacture things a little more efficiently. But we share the same chassis, the same power supplies, the control circuitry, all that stuff is all on. It's completely modular construction, by the way. So it's completely repairable in the field. But they all share the same platform. But the GPM 300 is a router. It's an up to 8 by 8 router. You can order it in two configurations, either 4-channel or 8-channel. So again, you can go in AES and come out AES, or go in AES and come out analog, depending on the configuration. And then we have another feature within this, which is kind of unique. We call it a switcher within a switcher function, so that each output can have assigned to it a pair of inputs, which you can select from any of the available inputs, programmable from the front panel. And then you can turn on the silence detector, and that particular output will detect silence on the A or B input, depending on which one is selected, and it will revert to the other channel. And you can do that across the entire 4 channels or 8 channels. And you can share channels as well. And one of the advantages of being able to do that, and one of the, one thing you can do with it is you can obviously use it as a A/B switcher with silence detection, at a transmitter site. And you might have 3 or 4 different stations there. So you can do all of this with one box. You can have A/B switching for various exciters and whatnot. The other use for this in a studio, which is quite common, is to control your EAS audio. So what we did there is you set up your A inputs for your program outputs, whatever they are, they're going to feed your transmitters, and you use the same B input across all those inputs, and that's your EAS generator output. And then we did one more thing. We added a serial interface, a direct serial interface between both the Sage alerting units and the Digital Alert Systems DASDEC units. They use a common serial protocol. By the way, we developed that protocol, and we, way back when, we got Harold Price and Bill Robertson to agree on one thing, at least, to use our protocol. So they both use our protocol. We also supply, and if you're using GNR, Gorman Redledge, we supplied Jim Gorman with the same protocol. Now, I don't know whether Jim's whether they've implemented it or not. I haven't talked to Jim in a while, and I should probably give him a call and see if they've done anything with that. So we can interface directly with a serial connection to these various EAS systems, which makes it kind of handy. And then what happens is our unit then becomes a slave to the AES unit at that point. You configure your EAS unit for whatever your operation is, and it'll select those channels. Now, for Sage, they only allow you to do up to 4, 3 external, 1 internal. So it'll control 3 channels on our unit. And I think DASDEC, at last check, I think they did 5. So if you need to have that many, you'd order an 8-channel unit from us, and you could cover up to 5 stations. And this is what the GUI looks like. It's a little busier than the ATB 300, but pretty simple. Directions right on screen for you, and I have to read these every time I test one of these because I never remember it either. So you select an output channel from the left-hand side. Just press a button there for whichever output you want, and then you select an input, and that's pretty much it. And then number 3 is repeat if necessary. Well, that means if you're going to go on to your next switching function. Alrighty. So, by the way, one other thing that I think I mentioned before is these units are have an SNMP MIB available for them, so they are SNMP compatible, and that's how these GUIs work. By the way, they are firing sets and gets, so that one of the nice things is if you get one of our units and you want to test it with your remote control system or your software and something's not working right, you can always connect unit directly to our GUI and just make sure that it's responding to commands, and then then you can go yell at the remote control guys or whoever else if there's still a problem or you have some other external network issue to deal with. But we provide GUIs for all of our products because we think it's important. The other thing is, as a matter of fact, I got a call the other day from of all days, Monday, when we had a blizzard going on here. We were working from home that day, but you know what? The guy called, left a message, and I called him back within about 20 minutes because that's just what we do. And he actually didn't have it was not an audio switcher. He had one of our SWP 300 remote control systems that he had installed about 8 years ago. And he was using it with a Burke, and the Burke went offline for some reason. He said, hey, I want to be able to, control your unit directly. Is there a way to do it? And I said, you mean to tell me you didn't download the GUI, 8 years ago? So I told him where to find that on our website, and I guess he did that and took care of his issue. So, all of our Ethernet-based products, SNMP-based products allow you to do that. You get the best of both worlds. You can connect to your remote control or your third-party software that you might be using for doing remote control, and you have the graphical user interface available to you. So you have both ways that you can access these units. And then last but not least on our list of audio toolbox products is the DAB 300, and as its model designation kind of indicates, digital audio broadcast dual path switcher. And tell you a little quick story about this product. We developed this product probably about 15 years ago or so, and it was Doug Irwin, when he was working with iHeart in New York at the time, asked us to put this together. We needed they needed an IBOC type switcher, something that would switch their analog audio path and their digital audio path, one being delayed, one not being delayed, where you would have 2 main and 2 auxiliary paths, so that if one failed, it would flip both over at the same time so that you would maintain the time alignment. So we created, out of the Audio Toolbox family, the DAB 300 series switcher, and it does just that. And probably the most popular and the most common version of this one was if I remember right, it's the DAB 300-4, which is the AES-3 I/O and composite I/O, because a lot of stations were still using baseband composite on their analog transmitters and the AES-3 on the digital transmitters. So we developed this board that's a 4 composite input to 4 composite output DA, and then we also added a DSP in there so that you could take the composite and convert it into an AES-3 signal. So that was the most popular version of this one, but you could configure them for a pair of AES-3 cards or an AES-3 and an analog input if you wanted it. It really depends on, we have, again, if you go to our website and you go on the product page for each one of these products and download the data sheet, it shows you all the configurations that are available with the model designation. So if you have an application for something like this, you can quickly find what you need. And of course, the GUI is looks very much the same as the ATB 300 GUI, and it works the same way. Okay, so those are our Audio Toolbox products. Now, a little later on here, I have there's some accessories that we make for these products, which I'll go through. But they're also used for some of the other products, so I'm going to wait on that, and we'll get through it. So, any questions so far about this? These are the three Audio Toolbox family products. Anybody have any questions about how any of these work or anything I've said thus far? Okay, silence is deafening. I guess that's a good thing. All right, let me move on here. So the next series of products that we make are these passive SNMP audio switching solutions that we make. And, these are all relay-based switchers. And you might say, well, gee, relay-based switchers. Well, they're used in a lot of places. There's a lot of industries and different uses for switchers where they don't want to have anything in the signal path that can cause the audio to be altered in any way. So we developed three classes of three different passive audio switchers here. We actually have a fourth one, which I'm going to show in another slide here in a bit. But the RAS 200 series, we make two different models here, which is the 208, which is an 8-channel stereo switcher. Actually, you know what? I bet the pictures are reversed on these. I just realized that. I think I've gone over this PowerPoint about 900 times, and I just realized that the pictures are reversed. The 16-channel one is actually up on top, and the 8-channel one's on the bottom. The photos are reversed, but that's okay. You get the idea. It's an 8-channel stereo switcher, and the 216 is a 16-channel monaural switcher. And then the PAS 200 is a programmable passive switcher, which I'll talk a little bit about here. So let's go through with these each one at a time. Hopefully, did we get the? Well, I don't know. This is okay. We have both pictures here, but this is again the common things or strengths, as I would like to say, of these products. They're Tascam standard I/O, completely passive signal path. They support GPIO on the remote control side, SNMP v2, and RS-232 serial protocol. Now, talk to you a little bit about this. We have three different protocols that we can accommodate. One is the EAS serial command set, which I talked about earlier. So it's the same command set that works with our Audio Toolbox series. Then we have the BDI serial command set, which is just basically our own, serial protocol, which is listed in the manual for the product. Then the third one is a programmable user-defined serial command set. So you can go in and let's say if you have your own, you have products or you're using stuff in your plants that you want to, let's say, replace with a new switcher or replace the equipment. You can do that. And you can program our unit to work the same way that your automation system commands or satellite receivers or whatever it is you're controlling with the serial protocol. And once that's entered, it'll stay in there for good until you change it. So we created that because we know there are a lot of things out there of a serial nature that may have different protocols, and to have to list every one and work with every one. We just made it so that you can just put your own in there and work with that. So these are, around a broadcast facility anyway. These are good for console input expansion, automation and EAS switching, satellite receiver switching, that kind of thing. Now, on the EAS switching, what you can do there is you can designate an EAS channel. And so when the EAS generator fires, I mean, this is only one input at a time. So when the EAS generator fires, it'll go to that channel. And then when the test is done or the event is over, it'll switch back to the last channel selected. All of these models are furnished with redundant power supplies. We're starting to do that on all of our newer products. We've heard this loud and clear, single point of failure and all that good stuff. So we give you two individual power supplies and two individual power cords on this product class. And again, you can use these because they're passive, you can pass analog audio through them. We've tested them pretty thoroughly with AES-3 audio, and while it's not synchronous, you can pass AES-3 audio through these, and we've done, I think, up to 192 kilohertz sample rate. but I would be careful with that with 192 kilohertz sample, right? How you handle that in general, because it ain't the same as 44.1, as anybody who's worked with it for a while will tell you. All righty, so this is the graphical user interface for the product. Looks an awful lot like some of the others, but again, you can go into the configuration page and you can set up the input names. You can give the unit a name, and you can have multiple units connected. And if you look here, this is the configuration or the settings page for the product, and you've got all your typical network configuration information that you can put in. Then your naming information, you can name the unit itself, and that will show up. And you notice up at the very top, it says device number 1. As you add more devices, more tabs will appear up at the top of the main screen, and they'll have the name for the site or whatever, however you have them named, so you know which one you're looking at. And then at the bottom of the serial settings, so you can go in and set the baud rate and either use the EAS command set, the VDI command set, or the user-defined command set. And then when you use the user-defined command set, I don't have a slide for this, but it'll come up and allow you to type in whatever your commands are. And at the very bottom there, you see this says EAS channel. You can designate which channel would be your EAS input. Okay, so that's the RAS 200 series. And believe it or not, since we've been making those, we've shipped probably more of the binaural switchers. I think there's an awful lot of applications where people just need to have audio, just binaural audio for various reasons, to switch, whether it's for intercom systems or just what they're doing with them, I don't know. But they're just as popular as the stereo version of the switcher. Okay, so the next one that we make, and this is another one that we created a while ago, but we gave it a little bit of a facelift in that we added some additional features to it. This is, again, a passive switcher, and this has a possible total of 16 A and B inputs. They can also be ordered in 8-channel models, but most popular one, pardon me, is the 16-channel unit, and you have 16 A and B individual binaural inputs. And there, again, the I/O is Tascam standard, programmable grouping of A and B inputs. So you can then take a number of channels and group them together, and then when you switch, they'll switch at the same time. So, for example, you could do if you have 16 available, you could do 8 stereo switchers. You can do 4 at a time. You can do 2 8 at a time. Or any combination, up to the 16. These are SNMP V2, RS485 serial, and we did that because the customer asked us to. We had a customer that was outfitting these units in a particular application where they had an automation system that used RS485, and that's what they wanted, so we created that. There's of course, a GPIO control and status as well. And these units, although the one shown here is not dual power supply, they are available in dual power supply versions. We make both single and dual power supply versions of this product because for whatever reason, the customer base for these, they don't always need the second power supply or want it, and they don't want to pay extra for something they don't need. So, we make it available in both versions. So this is, again, what the graphical user interface looks like for this. This is the monitor screen or the control screen. And like the other products, you can name these groups and the individual channels, which I'll get into here, and then I think in the next slide. But this one's configured for 4 groups of 4 inputs. There's one possible combination. And to switch, you just hit the arrows at the left or the right, and they'll all move over at the same time. So this is the setup part of the setup screen here, where you can go in and you can define the group names. Again, you have up to 16 because there's 16 inputs. You could actually do, if you wanted 16 individual inputs, switching back and forth if you needed that, but you can do any group size. You can also name the inputs, which you see the other two tabs there, which, pretty much the same idea. And then this is the mode configuration. And we have a number of predefined operating modes in there. And, as you see, the one that's shown here is the 4-channel A/B switchers, but you can cycle through those, and there's a bunch of them in there. And then you can also design your own custom set if you need, and you do that with the group sizes. And of course, the instructions on how to do it right there on the page for you, so it makes it kind of easy. And this has been a very popular product outside of broadcasting, believe it or not. There's a lot of uses for these kinds of switchers doing other things. So I don't know that we've sold too many of them to radio and television, but they've gone a lot of other places. But again, if you need to have a bunch of A/B switchers, they're passive, mono, stereo, however you want to set them up. This is actually a good choice. Okay, we got one more passive switcher. Oh, and one more, the 816 series. And you'll notice the rear panel of this one looks very similar to the PAS 200. Well, it doesn't share the same hardware on the inside, but it can handle the same number of channels. These are available in either 8-channel or 16. I said I'm sorry, I need to correct myself. On the PAS 200, that's available in just that one model, 16 channels across. I got a little confused. I got a little ahead of myself. The 816 is available in both 8 and 16 channel models. This is a much simpler product. It just has you can either feed 8 channels in or 16 A/B inputs, and when you push the buttons on the front panel or hit the GPIO on the rear panel, it switches all of them over at the same time. And again, great as an emergency switcher, single point of failure, bypass switching. These get used a lot in live event trucks and things like that, where they might have a digital console and they never do something stupid during a live shoot. So apparently they do. So they a lot of groups have used these to back up their consoles or their configure other things too. But there's an awful lot of things out there that are Tascam standard, which makes it a lot easier to interface to. So this is just another one that I wanted to show you that we do make. All righty, so that's all of our relay-based switchers. So I'm at the end of that group of stuff, and before I go on to the next group, any questions about any of these products?
Bob, one question I'll toss in here, and that has to do with programming. And I know that you mentioned here all the SNMP and GPIO.
Mm-hmm.
And you work closely with your customers, don't you, to help them interface with any piece of gear?
Oh, we try to. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the customer support we were talking about earlier. Sure.
And so if there are those that want to do this programming or want to put in custom ideas or functions, you'll help as best you can.
Well, I'm not sure what you're asking me, Barry, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as interfacing to external equipment, is that what,
Yeah, you showed us last year, I guess it was, that you have tables of the codes for a lot of different.
You're talking about the MIB files. Oh, sure,
Yes.
Sure. Yeah,
Yes.
those are available. Again, those are downloadable from our website, and yeah, absolutely. If you have trouble with any issue with understanding anything that's in the MIB tables that we provide, sure, we'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you.
Because that'll help somebody that's just getting started, and this is the first time they've done it.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, one of the things I would recommend anybody that's getting into SNMP for the first time, I kind of hard to believe that anybody is these days because it's been around for a while now. But new guys coming into the business who haven't necessarily dealt with it. What we generally recommend is to go out and get yourself, a MIB, what's called a MIB browser, and there's one that we recommend there's a link for on our various product pages on the website that's made by iReasoning. Maybe most of you guys are familiar with that. They make a free version, and they also make an enterprise version you can pay money for that does extra stuff. But What those allow you to do is, that's another good troubleshooting tool, by the way. If you have a browser on your machine and you're having trouble for some reason understanding why you can't get, your remote control or your, other software to work with our unit, if you use the iReasoning browser and you load our MIB into it, you can control the unit directly through the browser and see that it's working properly, and you can get status back. So you can do literally do sets and gets with a MIB browser. So sure, absolutely. And anybody that has a little trouble understanding some of the there's different figures in there and things like that, and icons and whatnot that are used in that in the SNMP realm. So we can help you with that. Sure, absolutely.
I think that makes a very valuable feature myself, because there's so many things that you can do. And yeah, if it's just a very simple, yes, is this open or closed? Yes, do you push the button? But
Right.
if you want to go a little further with it and have a flexible system, you've got the right product for it.
Right. Well, I mean, we all the OIDs that we use, which are basically the things that you're either, it's a command set that you're sending off to the unit to say, hey, go do this, or it's asking for information back. That's a set as an OID that you're sending the unit to get it to switch or to do whatever it is you want it to do. And then the gets are, getting status back from the information. Now that stuff is static within the unit, so you really can't change that, within the unit. We have a defined set of commands for these units, and that's pretty much it. I can't imagine. I think we cover most everything that you would need to do within one of our units, with those OIDs that we've developed. So to that extent, I think what most people do, I have to tell you, is probably 99% of the time with our products at transmitter sites, for example, they're going into an ARC Touch Plus or a Davicom Cortex or Relio or somebody's remote control system. And you're probably working more with a remote control company if you have issues. But they're used to that, because they're almost everyone now is developing products that are SNMP compatible, and there are MIBs available for all these different manufacturers' products and whatnot. And so I think those folks at Burke and the folks up at Davicom up in Canada. And I will tell you that, not to, I want to try to remain, manufacturer agnostic here, but I can tell you that I've had very good experiences with ComLabs, with Davicom up in Canada. They work with us. They in the beginnings of us getting involved with SNMP based products, they asked us to work with them to certify that their remote control would work properly with our equipment. And so we work with them. In some cases, we sent equipment up to them. In other cases, we just put units online and they could go in and check to make sure there was compatibility. John Ahern, who's the president of the company, is a friend of mine and a good guy. And so he works with us. I can't say that we've had that kind of a relationship with the other companies, but, I can tell you that that's one company that believes in customer service. So if you need to make the connection between, like a BDI product and a Cortex remote control, you're going to get help from both sides of that and get it taken care of. And I think probably the same thing is true of the other companies. I wouldn't say that, but I just have firsthand experience with Davicom. All righty. Any other questions before I move along to the last group of things I wanted to talk about? All right. Well, I guess we'll move along here. Oh, before I get to the last group, I did mention we have these accessory products. So let's go through those really quickly. We make these audio interface panels, which are our Tascam standard, and we developed them for our product line, but they will work with any Tascam interface. So if you have a piece of equipment that has a Tascam interface and you need to break it out to XLR, BNC, and we make 50 ohm BNC for the composite stuff that we do, and we also make the 75 ohm, which I think is what's pictured there for the AES-3. A lot of the television folks that have AES-3 running around their plants, they like to use 75 ohms. Like, I wonder why. So we make these in various configurations. The AIP 100 interface can be used for analog or AES applications, and we supply 3-foot cables, Tascam cables with each one of these panels. So there would be 2 cables for each panel. So that's a standard male to male, and they're all AES-3 compatible, all shielded balanced pairs. So we get good integrity going to our equipment, anybody else's. Now, I will point out one thing. If you look at the bottom panel there, the DIP 100, which is our digital interface panel, it's made specifically for our AES-3 IO. So our protocol for IO on the D sub is male, female, male, so it's input output. Stand by one. I think we're getting a UPS delivery. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. As you can tell, I'm the only one here this afternoon. Otherwise, you can use these panels with, as I said, with any Tascam interface device. All right, so that's the interface panels. And then we make, for the Audio Toolbox series, we make an intra-facility remote panel. And particularly with the, actually, we called it, in the beginning, we called it the GPM-RC, which because it was designed specifically for the GPM switcher, which is a router, but it will work with the ATB300 as well. And so the way this works is, as you might recall from the GPM300 discussion, you can have up to 8 inputs and 8 outputs. So what this allows you to do is to select an output over on the right-hand side, and that will, when the unit is connected to a unit, it will give you the actual channel that's selected for that output. The buttons light up; they're lighted buttons, and then you can select an input that you want to switch it to. Now, of course, this is an ARM system, so you have an arming switch. That's the big green button there, and it's a protected button, so you have to raise that and push the button in, and it'll light up to say that panel is active, and then you can make your channel selection. Of course, we also incorporated status audio channel status indicators in the center there. So for each of the inputs, you'll have a light that will illuminate if there's active audio on that particular channel. So again, you're not going to switch to a channel that has no audio on it. You can inspect that before you make any of your channel selections. And this unit communicates back to the GPM via RS-45. And as you probably are aware, RS-45 is an addressable bus. So you can have up to 6 locations where you can have these panels located. So what's great about this is you can locate the GPM 300 back on a master control someplace, and you can give access to these channels in various studios and whatnot, or various places within the facility. We also have a serial interface on this unit, an RS-232 interface, I meant to say, because RS-45 is also serial, that allows you to program these units to turn certain channels on or off, so that if you don't want certain inputs to go to a certain output, you can turn those on and off, and that's covered in the manual for the product. Alrighty, and you can use Cat5 cabling instead of having to use standard type of serial cables that we all remember fondly, or maybe not so fondly. So we've kind of made everything Cat5 standard. So the RS-45 connector on the back of the unit is an RJ. It's for RS-45. It's a Cat5 for RS-45. The RS-232 interface, that's still a D sub 9, but you're going to probably connect that up to, well, these days, if you have a computer with a serial interface, good luck, but you're probably going to use one of those little USB dongles to connect to it. You got to remember, we designed this product back in the day when when serial protocol was a little more common on PCs, but you still can do it. It's just you just have to have the proper interface to do it. And then we make an intra-facility remote control panel for the RAS-200 and PAS-200 series, and this one works with on the RAS series, it works with an RS-232 protocol because that's what we use. And on the PAS series, it uses the RS-45 protocol. So both connectors are on the rear panel, and depending on which version it is, you would use one connector or the other. And that concludes the, well, let me just go back here real quick in case anybody has any questions about these panels. So that's pretty much the accessories for all of the Tascam sort of I/O products that we make and the remote controls and whatnot. So any questions there? Any ideas for applications? Should I write them down? Okay, well, we'll move along then. So the last category of products I want to talk about are our FM transmission audio products. And, we've been making some of these things for a very, very long time. And I think the first composite, I'll tell you a little quick story about composite audio switchers and how we got started with this. We probably have been building composite audio switchers for about 35 years now, since the early 90s. Back then, I was a chief engineer in New York City and running this company, like a lot of guys do. They start a little basement business, and it was a part-time affair at that time. And we had this situation where we had two transmitters and we had two different audio processors. And many of you will remember fondly the old Orban 8100 audio processor, which at that time was the processor that everybody used. And we still had an old Orban 8000 processor on the standby transmitter. And the thing was, every time we put that auxiliary transmitter on, the backup transmitter on, the program director would kind of whine and complain about why the audio sounded different on the station. So my former partner and I, who was also my assistant at the time, Mr. Frank Bergert, who co-founded this business with me back in 1985, he's not with the company anymore, but we are still very good friends. He just one day decided he wanted to go off in a different direction, and so that's what we did. But anyway, at the time we were working together, and we created the first composite switcher DA, and it solved two problems. One was, well, what if you have a processor failure or a link failure? You want to maybe switch the composite. So we put that facility in there. And then what if you wanted to take that Orban 8100 and have it its output appear on both transmitters? So regardless of which transmitter was on the air, it would sound the same. So the CDS 200, which was our original product, was born. And boy, did we sell a pile of those in the 90s. It's a very popular product. Probably the number one customer for those was Harris Corporation. They used to buy them all the time from us. Later on, our digital switchers. But anyway, we made those for about 10 years, 15 years, something like that. And then we came out with this CDS 302 version, which made some significant improvements. And I'll talk about those a little bit when I get to it. So that's how we got into the composite business in the first place. And then we have the CTD 300, which is our composite to AES converter. Yes, we're still making those. And then we have a low pass filter, which is still a pretty good product if you need that. I'll discuss that. And then we make a composite mixer DA, and I'll tell you why we got involved in building those. And last but not least on the list is, yes, a standalone SCA generator. I think we're probably the last man standing building a standalone SCA generator. And so we brought that out a couple of years ago. And when we get to that product, I'll tell you a little story about how that got created and why. So go through these one at a time here real quick. Again, the CDS 302 composite automatic switcher DA, that was the other thing that we added to the 300 series that the 200 didn't have, was a silence detector. It's got two baseband inputs, three outputs, two on the rear panel, one on the front for testing. And the inputs are selectable, balanced, or unbalanced. And let me stop a minute on that and talk to you about balanced versus unbalanced inputs on baseband signals. Think common mode. When you're interconnecting more than one thing together, you run the risk of having a common mode ending up on your input cables. And so to solve that problem, you use a balanced input and have something that has a pretty good common mode rejection ratio, throughout the passband that you're interested in. So the way we get at that is we use a very, very high quality instrumentation amplifier, and you can select whether you have balanced or unbalanced input. And in addition to that, the signal path is completely DC coupled. And that's important for composite baseband for a number of reasons. One is that you eliminates the tilt and overshoot problems that you might have at the low frequency end of the spectrum. And then you have a very flat frequency response throughout the passband, well beyond 100 kilohertz, and no phase distortion because you don't have any capacitors in the line. And all of those things are important for good FM stereo performance, for separation and for modulation density. You don't want anything to add to your modulation component like overshoot or anything like that can rob you of modulation. So if you're still doing baseband, you'd be surprised. Again, I know a lot of new transmitters are out there that have all of this stuff built into the exciter, but there are still a lot of people out there that are still running older transmitters. It may not be on the main, but on the backup, they still have they still have composite input, or they may have an older stereo generator, or they may have an older composite STL that they're still using. So all of these applications, pardon me, require some management of the composite audio, and so that's what this product does. A couple of other features here. This unit has an RBDS loop-through feature. Again, you can take your the way that works is the incoming composite signal, whichever one is selected, can be routed out to the RBDS generator, where it can then be linked to the RBDS signal and brought back into the unit, synced up is what I was trying to say, and then brought back into the unit, and then now you have the composite plus the RBDS that's available on all three of the outputs. And the silence detector is a very simple 30 or 60 second silence detector with a dip switch setting on the rear panel. And it doesn't do anything fancy like the audio toolboxes. It doesn't have auto revert feature, but there is a remote error reset that once it's switched, it'll stay on that channel until you go in and, and with the remote control or from the front panel, push the error reset, and it'll remain in the auto mode, and then it's ready to go again. And I will tell you this is not an SNMP equipped device and probably never will be because as a legacy piece of equipment, which, we're probably not going to be designing any new composite switcher DAs that are standalone. I mean, you can certainly get that functionality out of one of our audio toolboxes, but this is simply it's a 9-pin D-sub connector on the back that does the remote control and status. Alrighty, so that's the composite switcher DA that we make. And then just really quickly, we'll go through this one. This is the CTD 300. And again, this unit came about, pardon me, back in the day when iBot was all brand new. And now we needed to convert everything to AES3. So you can bring in a 3.5 volt peak-to-peak composite baseband signal and convert that to a pair of AES3 balanced outputs. Or you can, with a jumper inside the unit, or a pair of jumpers actually inside the unit, you can convert from AES3 to balanced analog audio output +4 output if you need that. And on the AES side, the sample rates are adjustable from anywhere from 32 to 96 kilohertz with dip switch settings. Now, typically we ship these at 44.1 because that's typically what the industry standard is. Oh, that, by the way, is the same on the audio toolboxes. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. You can you can select an output sample rate of 32, 44, or 48 kilohertz, because in a lot of professional audio applications, they require 48. There are some legacy systems that still use 32 kilohertz, and so if you need that, that's available. Now, our low-pass filter. These things, various companies have tried to do these over the years, and I don't know. I think we're again the last man standing building anything like this. Pardon me one second. But if you have situation where you might have a noisy STL, composite STL, or you might have artifacts being generated by a processor or something like that, that never happens, right? You can insert this filter in the line, and it's designed to protect the baseband region, the FM stereo region. And we do that because it's a 10th order linear phase filtering system. So it preserves the amplitude and phase response within the baseband, but it gives you protection filtering above the 53 kilohertz. And if you go to our website and you look at the data sheet for this, there are some photos of spectrum photo. Well, they're not spectrum photos; they're actually oscilloscope photos of baseband signals, and you can see, through the unit how flat the baseband is and what the pilot phase looks like. Again, you have to preserve the pilot phase, the amplitude of the signal. So you want to have very low group delay through the passband, and the only way you're going to get there is with lots of order filter, and it has to be linear phase. So there's really no degradation of the stereo performance, and it cleans up that baseband, and in particular protects that 67 kilohertz region if you're still using 67 kilohertz for subcarriers, which a lot of stations are. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. All righty, so the last product with the gray face on it is the CMP 300. And, we actually developed this product. I'll tell you who we developed this product for, Microsoft Corporation. Does anybody remember the Spot watch that they used to, back in the early 2000s, that they were marketing? They bought tons and tons of these things from us to outfitted stations. And they wanted to have, they had their own 57 kilohertz subcarrier generator that they used for the Spot watch. And they used this unit to accommodate the station if they needed additional inputs to accommodate the 57 kilohertz, because you can go in here with 3 baseband inputs, mix them together, and then have them available with 3 individual outputs. And again, this is a composite baseband unit, so you can use it for anything that's in the composite baseband, whether it be FM stereo, subcarriers, or anything that you want to place on the baseband. Individual input control and output level controls. We did that. That was actually going back to the original composite switch that we made. We always had that problem where the level would be right for one exciter, but not right for the other, even though they're all supposed to accept the 3.5 volt peak to peak signal. They almost never did to get full modulation. So you can make adjustments to compensate for that for each exciter. And again, this unit, like the others, is all DC coupled, so you get transparent pass through of the baseband signals. Last, and certainly not least, and the newest product offering in our baseband series is our SCA 200. This is a DSP-based dual 67 kilohertz subcarrier generator. And before I go on, I will tell you that we don't build a 92, and it's not likely that we ever will. We had a customer recently that asked us to look at it, and then we said, well, let's see if we can make it out of this unit. And as it turns out, we really can't, because it has to do with the DSP that we're using in this particular product, and we'd have to change the DSP out. It'd be an expensive project to do that, and the demand for 92 kilohertz subcarriers is really probably very low principally because of IBOC, number one, and that, and in general, things that used to use SCA have gone to other things, all on the internet. However, there are some services that still rely very heavily on 67 kilohertz subs. One of them being reading for the blind, for example. And I'll tell you a little story about how we got started doing this in the first place. About 5 years or so ago, got a call from Brian Suzik, who is these days with Gates Air, and he's an old friend who lives upstate from us here. And he said, hey, I got a customer that is in need of an SCA generator. They had a fire at their transmitter site, and they got to replace everything. And one of the things they need is an SCA generator because they have a sub customer. And he said, I know you guys do a lot of composite stuff. Could you make one? Because there isn't anybody that's building one. So I said, well, let's take a look at it. And, Ron and I got together, Ron Kumetz, who's our director of engineering, and we said, we could probably take a module that we use for other things and repurpose it as an SCA generator. And so, we got it to go, and we developed this SCA generator. And we kind of did this at the time. I thought it was kind of a charity or a public service thing because I didn't think we'd ever sell another one of these. And it was for a public station in upstate New York, and they were using it for reading for the blind. And I thought, well, this is a good thing to be doing, even if we only sell the one or we just supply the one. And we got it done, and we shipped it up to them, and they installed it. And from what I understand, it's worked just fine for them. And so we turned it into a product. Anything like this that we decide to make for somebody, we figured, well, there's probably somebody else out there that needs it. And to our surprise, we've sold quite a few of these. And I think it's probably because, the older anybody that was building these is either out of business or they're not supporting the products that they made. Mod Sciences, which probably made the most popular one, has been out of business for some time. And its founder is off to his greater rewards these days, so he couldn't even support them if he wanted to. So we decided that we'd turn this into a product. So that's how we got to build these in the first place. So what's inside are two completely independent 67 kilohertz subcarrier generators. So you can have one for main, one for standby, however you want to do that. Or if you might have two stations under one roof, and they both are leasing their subcarriers and to different customers, and so you can accommodate them with this one chassis. So each generator within the two has two individual outputs, and they each have individual injection level adjusts. Now you say to yourself, well, how can that be? There's nothing on the front panel. Well, it's all done with an app, which I'm going to show you here, an SNMP app. I'll show you in a bit. And each generator has an A and a B input, which is also remote controllable. And you might ask, well, why'd you bother doing that? Well, for two reasons. One was that the module that we ended up using has a number of inputs, and we said, well, we'll just use them all up. But the other thing is, once I got to thinking about this, we thought, well, this was a good idea. Again, the Reading for the Blind services is one of the bigger users of these SCA services. And I think I asked somebody recently, I think it was at a trade show, and was involved with one of these organizations. I said, well, why is it that in this day and age you're still relying on subcarriers and SCA service? And he said, well, it's very simple. He said, people who are sight impaired, a radio receiver is a very simple thing to operate. It has, one control on it. It has a volume control and an on-off switch, which is usually the same on the same control, and it's a very easy thing for them to navigate instead of having to figure out, push buttons and, or a screen, or have somebody set up an internet service for them or whatever. So he says, we've stuck with it because it just works for our clientele. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good answer. The other part of it is that because so many people, are using this service that are sight impaired, if they're sitting there listening to their books on tape or the news or whatever they're listening to, that's basically the radio that they're listening to. Well, what happens if there's an EAS alert? Wouldn't it be good to have the EAS generator output be able to feed that B input and have a means of being able to control it to do that? So that's why we added the B input. We thought that would be a good thing to have. Of course, you don't have to use it that way. You could have a main and a standby audio feed, I suppose, but we thought that was a good use for it. So we support, as I said, there's usable user-adjustable inputs and outputs. You can set the preemphasis, and there's also various low-pass filter settings. And we support the traditional auto muting. It used to be a requirement, an FCC requirement, that if the audio feeding the generator stopped, the generator had to shut off within 30 seconds. I don't think that's a rule anymore, to tell you the truth, but we included it just in case somebody wanted that function. There's other reasons for that. because another use for for using SCA, believe it or not, I had a customer that is using it this way down in Florida. They're using it for IFB. They have traffic helicopter. I think this is in Miami, in the Miami market, and they queue the talent in the helicopter with an SCA signal. They have an SCA receiver in the aircraft, and that's they turn that thing on, and that's how they queue the talent. So when they're done doing that, I guess they want to turn the generator off so that it's not robbing them of extra modulation. So what's left here? Well, we have a graphical user interface, which I'm going to show you, and this is also an SNMP capable device, so you can connect this up to your remote control for controlling and getting status back from the unit. And but there's also a GPIO. So the GUI looks like this. We call it channel 1 and channel 2, but that's really SCA generator 1 and SCA generator 2. But you can select the input here. You can adjust your gains. You can set your preemphasis. You can select your filter setting. I think it's 5, 10, and off. I think that's what we have, 5 kilohertz, 10 kilohertz, and bypass. And then there's the mode selector and your injection output on both. And a connected indication that shows that you're actually connected to the unit. The configuration page is really just the IP stuff, so I didn't show that, but you can set up your IP address and port and all that stuff, and that's pretty much it. And I think I am going to play Kreskin here and say that I can predict the future. I think the next slide is the last slide. So, at the end of another presentation by your humble servant, and I thank you for your attention. And if you have is there any other questions? Questions about FM stereo and how it works and all that stuff? I'd be more than happy to answer any questions I can.
Hey, Bob, I had a quick question.
Okay, Keith. What?
It's probably simple for you, but you mentioned most of the products, if not all of them, they're modular. So is that something that in the field, and I don't know if the engineers are generally troubleshooting and replacing a component themselves, or do you switch it out or lend them or take them in for repair?
Well, yeah, that's well, there's a couple of answers to that question. One is that we don't find a lot of engineers at stations these days doing troubleshooting to the component level, and there's various reasons for that.
Sure.
One is they frankly just don't have the time. I mean, it's not some don't have the expertise, but those that do often don't have the time to do that. So they're generally boxing up a unit and shipping it back to us for repair if it needs repair, or they're asking us for a module. So yes, for the units that are modular, like the Audio Toolbox products, the RAS series and the PAS series, there's just one board inside there, so it's not really, and there's really not much that's going to go wrong in those. Well, I take that back. Actually, there is in those units, there is a communications board that is replaceable. That is a modular connection. But the older products, they're all on, the ones that I just covered, the transmission line series, those are all on one board. So you probably would be sending that back to us if you're not fixing it yourself.
Okay, you handle that.
For the SCA generator, that is also modular. That's got a couple of modules in it. It's got a modular power supply and, all that stuff in it. That's the more modern design that, because we just created that product a few years ago. So, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, on the modular products, we can send you a module, and that usually gets you back in business.
You get it rolling again. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Snide remarks? Any kind of comments? All right. Well, Barry, I think I'm about done. So tried to keep it down to about an hour, and I guess I think I made it.
Oh, well, Bob, that's really interesting, and it's nice to see that your series of products here, which many of us are very familiar with the RF side, it's good to see the audio side as well.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I'll add too is that you probably will notice that a lot of our audio products they're kind of RF site centric in that we've kind of designed a lot of these products. Typically, a lot of them are used at transmitter sites. The fact that they have auto revert and that they do silence detection and that kind of thing, and some of them obviously the composite products were specifically designed to run at transmitter sites, but they find uses at studios as well. particularly the passive switchers and even the audio toolbox family. So they're at home anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be used at an RF site. But again, customers have applications for these things that we have. We have no idea how they're using them until they tell us. And so, But again, I will just sum up and just say that if you ever have any questions about our products, feel free to call us anytime.